A story is told about a politician. He was running for his second term as a governor of the state. So one day, he went to a church barbecue to get some food. While in line to get food, he received one piece of barbecue chicken. And the guy said, "Thank you so much, but excuse me, can I still have one more?" And the lady in charge said, "Oh, I'm sorry. You only get one. Each one will receive only one. Anyway, you will receive another food item in the next." And the guy said, "I'm starving. I love chicken." The lady said, "Oh, I'm so sorry. One each for customer only." The guy was a modest and unassuming guy, and he thought of throwing a little weight around. So he thought of something. "Do you know who I am? I am the governor of this state." And the lady replied back, "Do you know also who I am? I am just the lady in charge of the chicken." Lesson learned: do not overestimate and underestimate your worth. Today's readings, my dear brothers and sisters, speak about humility. And humility, a true humility that would lead us to be a generous and blessed sharer of God's blessing to others. The readings also remind us that this humility that the readings would tell us is not only a virtue, it is opening our hearts, our minds, and hands, especially to the needy. And it warns us from all kinds of pride and self-righteousness. The gospel would tell us and would teach us that we have to act with humility and see ourselves as servants of the community rather than those whom the community might feel honored to be served. We are not there to be served, but to serve. Brothers, in the first reading from the book of Sirach, it reminds us that if we are humble, we will find favor from God, and others will love us. It is very important that we have to be honest to ourselves, that we should be conscious of our limitation and acknowledge our position before God as His creature and yet as sinners. And as a humble people of God, as children of God, being humble would always lead us to acknowledge that everything we have is gift from God. And therefore, we are all expected to make best use those of gifts and use them to help others, especially the needy. The second reading, after comparing and contrasting the majestic God of the Old Testament with the humble God of the New Testament, we are given another reason to be humble. Jesus, the incarnate Son of God, humbled himself by taking our human flesh and live with us, so that he might die for us in order to save us. And he is inviting us, his followers, to learn from him as he lived his life, because he is meek, humble of heart. And here the author of the letter to the Hebrews would remind us that Jesus is lowly, principally in his suffering in death for our salvation. So we should be like him and follow his example in order to be exalted in the resurrection together with the righteous. And considering the words of Jesus, he is asking us that we have to act with humility and associate ourselves, especially with the outcast. The gospel, Jesus explains clearly to us the practical benefits of humility by connecting it with the common wisdom of dining etiquette. He said, if you are invited, do not choose the highest places. Rather, choose the lowest place, because the host might come to you and ask, brother, my friend, please give this chair to this person. It will embarrass you so much. However, if you are invited, take the lowest place, so that when the host comes to you, brother, please come, and he will give you the place you really deserve. And it is so uplifting, honorable, not embarrassing. And when Jesus speaks about the sitting of the guest in the wedding banquet, he was actually telling us that we have to honor those whom we ignore or others ignore. Because if we become generous and kind to this kind of people, we can be confident of the Lord's blessing. So my dear brothers and sisters, there is a need for all of us to practice humility in our personal and social life. And humility is based in the psychological awareness that everything comes from God. And therefore, we have no reason to elevate ourselves over others. On the contrary, we are expected to use these gifts God has given us to help others. True humility requires that neither of us overestimate or underestimate our work. We have to admit that we are all sinners, that we do not know everything, that we do not act always properly. Nevertheless, we have to recognize that we are created in the image and likeness of God, and therefore we are expected to help build the kingdom of God using all these gifts. We have to remember that we are important before God, not because of all these gifts, not because of what we have done or we are doing. We are children and important before God because He loves us so much that He redeemed us by giving us His Son and shedding His blood for all of us. Do not think that you are worth and important because you have done something extraordinary. Before God, you are important because He loves you. He has redeemed you. And so as a response for that importance, for that value, we have to use these gifts God has given us, not only for ourselves. And Jesus is asking us to associate ourselves with the outcast, the marginalized, the impoverished, the elderly, the homeless. Why? Because they are also children of God. They are created in the image and likeness of God. And so we are also asked, with that conviction, we are also asked to change our social patterns by connecting and serving these people, by reaching out to them, to let them feel that they are loved of God, they are important, they are precious, in the same way that we have experienced God's love and being redeemed by Him.